Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you all here. We are going to jump in with an acknowledgement of country. We welcome the Boonwurrung and Bunurong and the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today. We pay respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Going through today's webinar, we're going to go through a summary of key changes under the new Victorian Science Curriculum 7 to 10, some of the challenges facing schools when implementing the new curriculum, an introduction to our brand new digital platform, some purchasing options and availability, and then go through to Q&A. But please feel free to put any of your questions in the chat. I would love to introduce our presenter and author today, Helen Sylvester, the Learning Area Manager, the Australian Academy of Science, and the author of Oxford Science 7 to 10 for the Victorian Curriculum. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, everyone. I hope that you've had a good day so far at school. I'm going to be running through, first of all, the key changes of the structure of the new Victorian curriculum, and look at not just the changes of the things we might be aware of science understandings, but the overall trends that we're noticing over time. So as you might be aware, the new Australian curriculum was released in 2022, and then each state took an adopt and adapt approach. And at the time, I did a little bit of work with VIC in finalising the Victorian Curriculum 2.0, which was released and finalised in 2024. And anything that was changed in the it changed in part of the Victorian curriculum from the Australian curriculum, it was very much an adopt approach with small changes to wording to clarify and make it easier to understand. So I hope that that's what you find. So key things, a lot of the content descriptions are a lot clearer. So outline how much depth and breadth that you need to teach at each year level. It also refined the achievement standards. So one of the main changes for the achievement standards, which is what we need to report against, is what we're actually looking for. So whether or not students need to describe, whether they need to explain, whether they need to research, those key verbs that are used at the start of all the achievement standards is actually really important. So please pay attention to those. And then, of course, there is the aligning of the content descriptors and the achievement standards. And you will find that there is very strong correlation between the description of what you need to teach and the achievement standards that you need to report against. So that has been, that alignment has been strengthened quite a bit. So, for example, one of the key things that I want to show you is at Year 7 and 8, curriculum focuses on explaining phenomena involving science and its applications. Now, that's what it was, or what it is currently. And this is one of the big changes that you might see in the science as a human endeavour. And with the many decades that I've been involved in science teaching now, it's really interesting seeing the trend. So prior to the first Australian curriculum, it was all about teaching the content and getting students to understand those key science concepts. And then when the first Australian curriculum came out, it was about focusing on the here and the now, and the science as a human endeavour came in to provide context of what we're teaching. So, for example, rather than teaching about chemistry, it was about how we had developed. So the first Australian curriculum was talking about the people who made a lot of the discoveries and how they made those discoveries as an example of how science has developed over time. One of the key things to keep an eye out for the new Australian curriculum, and in particular the Victorian Curriculum 2.0, is we're now taking science content and looking forward. It's how we can use science content moving into the future. So science is not a set of facts that students are memorizing that's already been discovered, so there's nothing new happening. It's all about what do we know about science now and how can we use it going forward. So if, for example, if we look at some of the examples here, explain how new evidence can lead to changes, again, going forward, how people with different understandings work together in multidisciplinary teams, so using it, relevant ethical, environmental, social, and economic considerations, and the socio-scientific issues. So how can we use our scientific understanding to make decisions in the future about what sort of society we want? And also the importance of being able to communicate your viewpoints, policies, and regulations. So you can see it's all about making science useful here, now, and into the future, rather than looking back as previous science as a human endeavour did. So keep an eye out for that, for some of the examples that I'm going to show you in a little while. So remember how I said how the content descriptors and the achievement standards have been married up quite a bit. So there's some examples of this. So content descriptor, for example, Year 7 classification is similarities and differences between groups of organisms on Earth. So it's not just how they're classified, but this is actually being clearer in what sort of level we want students to be able to achieve. Also, the development and use, so the ongoing use of classification tools. And if I bring looking at the achievement standard by the end of year 8, students need to explain how biological diversity is ordered and organised. So you can see that students not only need to be able to describe examples, but they need to be able to explain how those changes in diversity is organised by scientists. If we look at science as a human endeavour, science knowledge, including models and theories, can change because of new evidence. That's the descriptor, and you can see the direct correlation. In this case, students need to explain how new evidence can lead to changes in scientific knowledge. So explaining is that key verb that students need to be able to achieve. That's what you need to report against. So while you might teach according to the content descriptor, the way you're assessing is the achievement standard. And evaluating, again, scientific methods, conclusions, and claims can be analysed to identify assumptions. And then students need to identify assumptions. So not explaining assumptions at this level, just identify assumptions and sources of errors. So keep an eye out for those key verbs. They're the ones that are put there on purpose. So deliberately put there because that's the level that students need to achieve. So how are the strands changing? So you will remember that we have 3 key strands. Science understanding, science as a human endeavour is a separate strand. In the previous Victorian curriculum, it was put under science understanding. It's now come back out and is a separate strand. And we have science inquiry, which is different to the science inquiry skills. And it's been very deliberate removing the word skills, because science inquiry has content knowledge as well as skills. So understanding the how and the why of assumptions, analysing methods, that's content knowledge, not just an ability to have the skill to do it. So you'll see that underneath that structure, we have some key things that are changing as part of that. So the wave and particle model, for example, there is the elaborations that are relevant to that. Oh, sorry, let me go back. The science as a human endeavour elaborations sometimes directly relate to the science understanding. Now, why you don't need to teach every single elaboration, it's worthwhile being aware what's in each of the elaborations as science as a human endeavour and science inquiry. It's very tempting just to read the content strand, but you'll see that here, when we talk about energy transfer through different mediums, we're also looking at identifying patterns and portional relationships of thickness of material for heat. So that science as a human endeavour directly relates back to that science understanding skill. Same thing that another one, if you look at elsewhere in the elaborations of the SHE, the science as a human endeavour, you're looking at sound levels and sound levels in the workplace and leisure activities. So that is an elaboration under the SHE that directly relates to the science understanding. And same goes for the science inquiry. It will be, for example, multiple layers of insulating material so that you're affecting the heat or sound. So you could do it under both of those. That, again, directly relates back to that one science understanding. So I think the point that I'm trying to make is that it's very tempting to go and look at the science understanding and what you need to teach in that. But you also need to pull apart the science as a human endeavour and find opportunities within those elaborations to be able to teach and make sure that you're covering and report against each of these science as a human endeavour and science inquiry. So the good news is I've already done some of that in the textbook, but as a start of looking at the for your department of what you're teaching and where, it's really useful to do it as an exercise to pull apart all the elaborations and start matching them up so that you know where you're headed within your subjects for your students. So I'm going to give you a chance to do that right now as an example. I have here a science understanding, so it's from Earth and Space Science, and it's looking at tectonic activities. Now, this has been moved from Year 9 back to Year 8. At last, I'm really pleased because students were already doing it in Year 8 in the HUMS anyway. But I've got a selection of Science of a Human Endeavour elaborations and a selection of elaborations from Science Inquiry. So let's go for the science as a human endeavour. We have 4 of those elaborations that have come out from there. And what I want you to do is put in the chat, number 1 for the first one, 2, 3, 4. Which one of those would be most appropriate for the science understanding that I've got there? So give you a quick minute to read, but just put a number in, and we'll see how we go. Just waiting for the first person who's game to put a number in. Remember, just the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one of those are relevant? Okay, we've got people who are a little bit too shy to put in there. That's okay. So if you've already made up in your own mind, you've probably written it on a pad next to you on your desk. Look at the science inquiry now. So again, I've picked out 4 different elaborations here, and one of those is directly relevant to the tectonic plates. So which one of those do you think would be relevant to or to teach under that tectonic plates that's now moved to Year 8? So I'll give you a minute to read through all of them. Oh, I've got someone game to put it down. So science inquiry number 3, which is film a documentary of the dynamic nature of the geosphere. Yes. So Jacinta, you're right there. That is the science inquiry that is relevant. Key thing for the science as a human endeavour, it's actually the deep time cultural sites with new scientific evidence, such as the cultural landscape. So that's one very specific example there that is relevant to the tectonic plate. So it's the changing of it over time. So it can be used in multiple ways, but it does tie in directly there. Okay, I'm going to give you another chance. This one, we're looking at Newton's laws. That's still in Year 10. We have a science as 4 science as a human endeavours. Which one of those, and hopefully this one will be more obvious this time, so under the SHE, is it the World War II chemical weapons? Is it number 1, that was. Number 2, the use of female crash test dummies. Number 3, looking at the impacts on ecosystems of social and ethical implications. Or is it number 4, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders deep time cultural sites? Okay, Jacinta, you've selected number 2 and number 3, and I'm going to say ding, 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 you're a winner. Hopefully other people have matched up with you. And thank you, Heather. Yes, she number 2 as well. Okay, one more chance. So this time we've got Year 9, infectious and non-infectious diseases. Now this is unique to Victoria. This is not from the Australian curriculum, so you'll need to dive a bit deeper to get resources for this, unless of course you're using our textbook. But we have Science as a Human Endeavour. We've got Lab Grow and Meet, Professor Barry Marshall and Dr. Robin Warren. We've got female crash test dummies, which we've already decided was the previous one. And of course, we've got Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander scientific evidence. So Heather, thank you. You've chosen Science as a Human Endeavour number 2 and the Science Inquiry number 2 as well. I haven't gone through that one. So digital tools and microscopes for science inquiry. We've got radioactive decay, amount of data for a useful sample of epidemics and pandemics, and filming a documentary, the dynamic nature of the geosphere. So you can see for me that infectious diseases ties in directly with Barry Marshall and Dr. Robin, and also does tie in with the sample size of epidemics and pandemics. And you can see that's the whole point of the curriculum, the Victorian curriculum, is to interlink that science understanding, science as a human endeavour, and science inquiry. Please don't just tack it on separately, intertwine all 3 strands together. That's the purpose behind them. Okay. Now I'm going to go into detail of exactly what has changed in each area. I'm going to go to what's been removed or moved first. The water cycle. The water cycle was in Year 7. It's now gone back to Year 4. So we really hope those primary teachers out there are going to be teaching it. If you know primary teachers, please support them so that we make sure students cover these things. Science understanding and skills for occupations. Now, this has been removed, and there's a very good reason for that. The occupations in science changes so quickly that we just can't keep up to it with what we're teaching in the schools. And occupations aren't always just one defined one. So for that reason, science understanding and skills in their occupations and how it's used has actually been changed into new strands, and you'll see that in the added section in a moment. Light and reflection and refraction was in Year 8. It was when a lot of us was teaching it. That's now gone under waves and particles in Year 9. So looking at the modelling of that. Sound as a wave, again, has been moved to Year 9 and 10. Reproduction we used to teach as part of Year 8 biology, along with the cardiac system, the respiratory system and digestive system. That's now been shifted to Year 9 and 10, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that when I get to the 9 and 10. Lenses has been removed completely. That was partly under the light, and the electromagnetic spectrum, which was part of that light and sound, has also been moved to Year 9 and 10. Okay, so what's come in? Communication of scientific knowledge and its role in informing individual viewpoints. This, I tend to think, is a direct result of the change since COVID-19. So keep in mind, these curriculums came in about the time of COVID-19, and different people's viewpoints and how scientific knowledge is passed on with vaccinations, you can understand why this has now become an important part of the science curriculum. The other thing is simple machines. Now, simple machines, which is your inclined plane, your wedges, your pulleys, screws, wheels and axles, used to be one of the elaborations in forces. Most of us would teach it because it was really important to cover. However, it's now been brought out as a separate part of the science understanding. So it has an increased emphasis on it. So just be aware of that. Previously it was an elaboration, you didn't have to teach it, now you do, which means you also need to report against it. Matter and energy and flowing through ecosystems. Now this is, for a lot of teachers, the biggest change. All of the content of ecosystems in Year 9, almost all of it, there's only a very small number of elaborations that are gone, but basically that ecosystems in Year 9 is now back in Year 7. And the reason for that is there is an increased emphasis, an increased amount that is supposed to be taught in the primary level. And therefore, rather than repeat it in Year 7, they've combined it all together into Year 7 instead. So just be aware of that. That's the biggest change, and I'll come back to how we might be able to plan for that in a moment. Household energy, so energy consumption has been added, and an energy audit. So it's bringing in, remember how I said it's all about that application of things? So that application has now come in for the energy at Year 7 and 8. Earth is a dynamic planet, so tectonic plates, as I said, this is a brilliant one. We've all been wanting, well, most of us, most teachers I talk to, we've been wanting this for a while. It made sense to put it in line with what's happening in the humanities. Now, the other one is electricity. So electricity has been sort of spread across a couple of years, but in actual fact, electrical circuits is in Year 7 and 8, because in Year 9, it looks at electricity and electricity generation. So most of electrical circuits has come into Year 7 and 8, which I tend to like because it's beefed up that energy unit. Rather than just teaching about the different forms of energy, gives you a chance to play with a few more things and expands that unit, makes it much stronger. Okay, 9 and 10. Again, I'm going to go through this in a little bit more. I'm going to look at the removed and or moved first. Electric circuits, as I said, most of that's gone to Year 7 and 8. Cell structure and differences between unicellular and multicellular organisms, that's been moved to Year 7 and 8. A lot of schools were already doing that anyway, and tectonic plates have gone to Year 7 and 8. Now, again, that's socio-scientific issues and sustainable future for humans and environment. So this is, instead of occupations, we've now expanded it out, and that forward-looking aspect of science is really obvious there in that area. Infectious diseases, as I said before, this is in Year 9. This is no longer an elaboration under regulation. It is its own area. Obviously, as a result of Victoria experiencing so much as a result of COVID, it's now got that increased emphasis. So where previously you didn't have to teach every elaboration, which meant not everyone did infectious and non-infectious diseases, now you need to. It's its own dot point. The other thing that's new, which again, I'm really excited, this is the forward-looking process, space exploration. So it's not just memorizing all the different planets and black holes and how the Big Bang theory is relevant. It's all about how can we use that knowledge going forward and the challenges of space travel and the impacts on humans. So that forward-looking application of science is really strong there, and I think it has great potential for being very exciting for students and teachers. Let's face it, we like something new like that. Develop explanatory models and relationships. So this is underneath the science inquiry aspect of it. We're starting to have explicit mention of bringing in explanatory models and the relationships, not just a physical model. It might be a mathematical model, for example. There are lots of different types of models. And if you look at the elaborations, it's really important to understand you need to talk not just about a model, but the limitations of a model as well. So have a look at the elaborations of that one. The wave and particle models, so light and sound have come into there, which is now in Year 9 and 10. Other changes, reproduction. So reproduction, as I said, has come from Year 8 into Year 9, but the key focus is this is setting students up for evolution. So you need to teach, I would tend to teach this in year 9 if you're teaching evolution in year 10, because the key thing that I've highlighted here, sexual and asexual reproduction, enabling the survival of a species. That means the R-related and K-related reproductive strategies needs to come in there as well. We've got scientific knowledge and the needs of society. So again, that forward-looking application of science and how we can use it and how we can communicate it. Electricity can be generated. So remember how electrical circuits essentially has gone back into year 7 and 8. We've got electricity generation in year 9. So that's the distinction between it. So electricity has moved out, but we talk about electricity generation, which is relevant given what's the current discussions that are happening in the community. Law of conservation of energy analysed in systems, including the Earth systems. So this is the introduction and the talking about the geosphere, the atmosphere, the biosphere, and the hydrosphere. Thank goodness I remembered them all. The outputs, inputs, and transformations of energy. And reproduction of plants. Oh, I've already mentioned that one, so I've doubled up on that, so my apologies. Okay, so challenges. Challenges that for implementing the new curriculum. And these are things that you need to think about. So one of the key challenges is the differentiation. So in any classroom, you've got a wide range of abilities, and there's multiple approaches to doing it, to coping with it. So wide range of abilities in the same classroom. How do you differentiate? Is this school-based approach, or is it an individual teacher classroom-based approach? So I'd love you to put in the comments, please. Do you have a school-wide approach to differentiating in the classroom, or is it teachers having your own individual approach that may vary from teachers to teachers? So how do you differentiate for the students that might have low literacy levels, who might have English as a second language, or for the students who might have high abilities? How do you make those changes? Is it a school approach or is it a classroom approach? I'm just going to give you 10 seconds to add a comment into the chat, into the Q&A. Thank you, Jacinta. So whole process of a whole school approach. A lot of schools often think about it and talk about it. Hopefully it's successful for you. Not every school has it laid out. So it's something that's worth those classroom discussions, or rather the staff room discussions, of how do you approach it, and maybe start the discussion within your department. So in a science department, for example, how do you differentiate in science? Do you have the same sort of resources for the EAL students or the low literacy students? Do you have a consistent approach for the high ability students? So as a department in the science area, how do you do it? Have that discussion. I call them professional discussions, and it's really important to have those. Okay, next one. Oh, and that's the other thing, is inside your science department, you might have out of field teachers as well. So that's far out of field. In other words, you might have PE teachers or others who might be teaching science that don't really have that science training at all. But I often think about the near out of field teachers. So you might be a biology specialist, a physics specialist, a chemical specialist. You might have psychology in your background, and you're having to teach in other science areas. So how do you support those teachers? Do you have discussions of what is the core concept? What is the key learning that you want to get out of each of the lessons? And just having that discussion of how much detail is actually really important for those that are out of field. So it's not just the students we need to think about, it's the teachers we need to think about. And the other thing that's as important as part of science is What's your key driver within the science department? Is your goal in year 7 to 10, is your goal to prepare students for doing VCE science? Or is your goal to get students to cover enough science so that when they leave, they're able to make decisions based on science evidence and critical thinking skills when they leave? So it's interesting having that discussion within the department, because within the science department, because you might find that different teachers have different views, and that might precipitate some discussions and difference of opinion of how you set tests, what sort of worksheets you might use, and what sort of experiments you do. Is you're doing them for different reasons. So it's good to have that common purpose within your science department. It helps reduce difficult conversations that might come up from time to time. Now, the curriculum change, this is the other big challenge that I know you need to think about. So the big one that is the most obvious change is the year 9 ecosystems moving to year 7. So are you going to do it all at once? And I'm always reluctant to do that, because it's just such an enormous workload for every single teacher right across the whole of the department. So, and you can't just take what you used to teach in year 9 and put in year 7, because what year 9 students would have been capable of with already 2 to 2.5 years of science training in the previous life at school, moving that back into year 7, when you've got such a huge variety of students, some of which have done a lot of science in primary school, some of which haven't. You can't just take the same year 9 content and worksheets and tests and everything else and shift it to year 7. You have to rewrite them. And that's really important. You need to think of those year 7 students and what their ability is when you're making decisions of what you're going to carry forward. You also need to think in terms of introducing new content. So I pointed out that immunology and space science are 2 new areas in Victoria. And because they're Victorian-based, not Australia-based, that means you need to plan for the content that you're going to teach in there. And thankfully, I've already done some of that thinking for you, but you will always need to think about the perspectives that you want to use. And also think about the changes that are happening at the VCE level, of how that will trickle down, that what sort of skills do you want students to have that are relevant to real life, but are also going to be important if they go on to further science. So the other thing is that if you change, do you change year 7 and 8 and then 9 and 10, keeping in mind that if you change year 7 and 8, those year 8s won't have a chance to do ecosystems, because that will be back in year 7, and therefore in year 9, they're going to be doing the new curriculum, which ecosystems has been removed. So will they need that? If they're going to get into VCE, will you need to do a catch-up in year 11? Or do you do a change with year 7 and year 9 first, then year 8 and year 10 next? So these are the things that you need to plan as a department, is how you're going to make those big significant changes that might be relevant. Okay, I'm going to hand back to Caitlin now, who's going to talk about some of that pre-thinking that I've done for you in the Oxford Science. All yours, Caitlin.
Thank you, Helen. All right, so jumping through, we'll talk about a few of the goals that we had for the new science series. So teaching and learning resource, it's purpose written for the Victorian curriculum. We really want to make sure that there's differentiated instruction. Like Helen was saying, it's not just about the students needing that, but also the teachers within the classrooms. We've partnered with ClickView to make some really incredible key content videos that I'll show you when we jump into the digital resource. And we want to support all teachers with innovative features like interactive lesson plans. We've got live lesson mode, and we even have an AI student tutor in development. Coming in 2025, we're really, really excited that we are putting together Oxford's First Nations Advisory Board. So this is bringing together First Nations educators, academics, and subject matter experts to ensure the voices and views of the First Nations peoples are considered in the planning and production of all future Oxford University learning resources. Our partnership with ClickView, so in the science series alone, we are putting together over 200 brand new key content videos. So one video for every single lesson in the book. These are great. They're 3 to 5 minutes long, they're quick, and they're able to not only help your students identify what's going to be going on in the lesson and give them a really good indication on what they're going to be learning, but also if you need a review yourself as a teacher, this is a really great way to jump in and get used to it. So what we'll do is we'll jump over to the Oxford Digital platform. I'll share my screen. I'm going to share this window here. All right, so hopefully everyone can see that. This is your homepage, and what your homepage will look like is that you'll have any books that you have in your library. We'll make sure that if you are maybe only teaching Year 7 science, you'll still have access to 7 to 10 to make sure that you're able to go through all of the content. On this homepage, you'll also get any notifications of marking or anything that you might need. So let's jump into the Year 7 science sample. Log in, and it'll bring us straight to that sample. As you can see, we're seeing the view of a teacher sample, but do keep in mind the student view is exactly the same. They just don't see the extra teacher resources and things like the lesson plans. Over here, you have your navigation window. It's really handy. It's on the left-hand side for anyone that's used our platforms before. You'll notice this looks really different. It's really exciting and incredibly user-friendly. The course content is similar to a contents page in a textbook. The resource tab shows you all the resources, any assigned work that you've assigned to your students, and the reporting tab. We've also moved to focus a lot on accessibility. So you've got your notes functionality, being the ability to change the font size to make it smaller or larger, and this can be per student, per teacher. It's not something you set for everyone. There'll also be a dictionary functionality and even a read to me functionality. So let's jump in and have a look. Close this off. Here you'll be able to see all the core content. So when you do see your sample yourself, you'll be able to jump in and see all of the core content. You'll notice here it's highlighting the sample resources are available. In the sample, we've just put them in one module or one chapter, but in the future, you'll of course have access to the sample resources throughout. I can click down and see all of my lessons. So we'll jump into a lesson. Here you can navigate everything from the right-hand side. You can click through to a particular part of the lesson that you might be wanting to see, jump into the lesson plan, which we'll have a look at, and I'll show you what slide and single page can do. Here I'm going to press next and jump through. You'll see the lesson overview. Here's a key content video that I was talking about with our partnership with ClickView. It won't play with the audio while we're recording and hearing my voice, but I promise in your sample you'll be able to download and watch this. You can also make it full screen, meaning that you're able to display that to your students at the front of the classroom. As you go through, you're able to scroll down and press next, or you can simply click through as you're going. You check your learning quizzes are those that are able to be short response, and then you can mark it. We've even given you some samples for some sample answers just to give you some guidance if you need it. In the related resources part of the module, you'll see that you've also got all of your different differentiation worksheets, support, consolidate, and extend, as well as the quick quiz. And the quick quiz is the one that is automatically marked. They're drag and drop, multiple choice, those types of questions. For anyone that's used our science book before, you'll also notice that we used to have all of our experiments in one chapter at the end of the book. We now have them in situ in the lessons. So as an example, here is your lesson 2.9 experiment. You click through. This is a really good example of how to see the slides in single page. So you might have a student that just needs to focus on one thing at a time, which we all know is super important in an experiment. So they can just see we're focusing on the aim. Then we're going to focus on the materials. But you might have someone that really just wants to see the entire experiment. You can simply click single page and be able to scroll through the entire thing and see the entire process. So you can do this at any lesson, and it's a really useful tool. We'll jump back in to the module, and I'll show you through a live lesson and the lesson plan. So here you can click lesson plan here or go to lesson plan. They'll take you to the same part. The lesson plan is customizable, so you're able to drop down, you're able to hide certain things. You're also will be able to in the future even add your own resources. You can also download the lesson plan into a Word document and edit it there as well if you wish. Dropping things down, you'll be able to see the learning intentions, the curriculum links, any advice, so how long we think it would take you to teach the lesson, any misconceptions that might happen often in these lessons, the differentiation strategies that we suggest, and then we also have a group of activities, a starter activity and some classroom activities that you can do. When you do this and you click Start Live Lesson, it'll allow all your students in the classroom to jump on. When you click Start Live Lesson, it will give them a little notification to join. It'll say not joined or joined. You can give them a nudge to remind them to join, and then you can go to live lesson. If they're late, you can always click roll call and they'll come back in. You still have all of your accessibility needs on the left-hand side, and then you're able to work your way through. This way, the students are also working through with you. The starter activity can be unlocked or locked, and this way it means that the students aren't able to jump too far ahead of you. If you're trying to make them maybe do it in a group activity, you can then unlock it when you're ready for it to be unlocked. And then maybe if you would like them to do some peer review answers, you can unlock the answers when you're ready. Once the lesson's done, you can end the live lesson, and then this is a really cool feature. What you can do is you might say, well, I had 6 students attend the class today, and I had 2 people that weren't able to attend the class. The students that were able to attend, maybe they've already watched the key content video, so you don't need to assign that, but you really want them to watch the key content video for the next lesson before the class. So you're going to select that as their homework. You select the date, no end date, and select the students. This might be for just the students that joined. Then the students that didn't join, you can select different assignments and then confirm that and send it through. In less than 30 seconds, you can have everyone assigned for the different needs that they have, maybe differentiation worksheets for different people, and you can close that window and know that they've got everything that they need. As you can see, this is opened up in a separate tab. This separate tab allows you to also have your main lesson plan on your screen while you're projecting it to the other. Jumping into the resources tab, you'll be able to see all of the resources. So you can either see all resources for the entire book, or you can see just for this lesson. You're able to filter them. You can filter right down to a subtype. You can look right now, we're looking at a teacher view, but you can see what the student view would like and what they can see. You can look in a list view rather than looking in a group if that's something you would prefer. And these 3 buttons, no matter whether you're in the content itself or you're in this section here, you can copy the link. You can make it a favorite, which I have here, and it's come up as my favorite video, or you can assign it to your students directly from here. If it's a worksheet, you can also download. So that's another option there for you. In the assigned work functionality, you can look at your class and go, okay, these are all the things that I have assigned to them. So this is a really good note when the student says, no, you never assigned it to me. You can see straight away, yes, I did. Your name's right there. You can edit this, delete them, and you can also just keep in mind who has completed and who hasn't completed their work. In regards to reporting, we've got 2 types of reporting. The curriculum reporting goes right down to each of the curriculum links and making sure that you're able to identify that you've met those needs of the curriculum. In the assessment reporting, you have a lot of things that you're able to do. You're able to download it as a CSV for your reporting needs. This highlight score above, on, and below level is this color scheme. It makes it easy for you to identify things, but maybe you're just meeting with one student or in a parent-teacher interview and you don't want to highlight that they're maybe not having the greatest time in the class. You can take that color away. Looking at all the students, jumping in, you can even compare their results. So check your learning. This was the 2.2 quiz that was within the resources. I'm going to open that up and I can see straight at a view how the students are doing per question. So you might have only two students have got this question incorrect. Maybe that's okay, versus more than half the class over here has gotten that incorrect. You can click on it, see how it was written, see how each of the students answered it, and identify maybe where you might need to go over things. Within the course and that accessibility needs, you're able to do so many things with these. So if I jump in and I'm able to show you, you're able to highlight things, make them yellow, maybe add a note. Maybe you have a great tip or an acronym that they might want to write there. You can save it there, add that note. And then if they click notes at any point, they can see anything that has been highlighted, and they can also see any notes that they may have made. If they need a larger font size at all time or yourself, they can save that. And as they go through, it will save that font size. The read to me functionality, you can highlight anywhere and then just say read to me and it will play for you. So this is a really quick view, and we would love for you to have the ability to trial it. So please do reach out to us and we're able to get you on board to trial this. So what I'll do is I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll bring back up those slides. Just one moment while it loads. Thank you. And we can jump into a few other things that we've got going on. So I know I quickly mentioned the AI tutor. Now, this isn't going to give them the answer. They can't type something in, it just gives them the answer. The idea is it's going to prompt them on how they could answer. Maybe they have their hand up and you're busy with 3 other students in the classroom. By using this tutor, they'll be able to maybe get prompted to maybe how to answer the question. It'll also give them links within the text on where they could maybe go to find more knowledge on that information. And it's pulling all the information from our resources rather than pulling it from that World Wide Web. So some of the challenges, I guess, that we solve within our range is that we know that there's a wide range of abilities in the classroom, both students and teachers. We've mentioned it, and we know that that's a struggle for everyone. So we want to make sure that the student abilities are identified, that we have the differentiation worksheets, and then that the teachers have confidence by using the lesson plans and module plans that we have available. We want to prepare all students for senior science because we know that's where a lot of them are going. So by having skills, the science toolkits, the skill builder questions and practice, better foundations in their core concepts, we really make sure that they are across everything they need to be across before going into those senior sciences. We then have the curriculum change. So we all know that the curriculum change makes a lot more work for you guys. Helen has done such a great job with the team to really try and identify everything that you guys need to give you the keys to get that curriculum change ready to go and make sure you can go into 2026 with all the knowledge and resources that you need. All right, so purchasing. We do have digital only options for schools that are just using digital. We have a digital and print option for those that still want the physical text. You can have a mix within the school. All right, we have essential and premium, which is really just around a couple of the different digital options that you have, as well as the value pack where we can combine things like science, humanities, and English, along with math. So we would really love for you to reach out and we can discuss those in further detail for you. In regards to availability, so all of the core content will be available for you by the end of term 2. So a lot of it is already there. 7 to 9 is already there on the trial and you're able to see that. The print books will be all available by the end of term 3 bar year 10, which will be available in term 4. And the digital supporting resources, so outside of the ones that are already there, will all be available in term 4 for you so that you are able to start planning for 2026. So in your webinar resource folder at the end, you'll find the curriculum guide. We've shared with you a sample chapter, some sample lesson plans and differentiation worksheets, and a digital sample link trial. So like I was saying, we would love for you to jump on the sample and we're able to jump on a Teams meeting or even come out to your schools depending on where you are and walk you through it in much more detail. If anyone has any questions, please do put them in the chat and we would love to answer them. And I do want to quickly show you, we will share these slides. I know someone asked that question. We will share these slides with you so you can go through them. At the appendix of these slides, so right at the end, we've got some samples of what the print book will look like on top of the sample chapter that you'll receive, and just some of the toolkits that we've put in, some of the identifications of why we've laid it out the way we've laid it out. You can see these numbers up here. We've color-coded. So, for example, biology is green, chemistry is purple, earth and space is pink. You can easily identify in the book what you're looking for. As I mentioned, experiments are in situ. So if you do have any queries, please do reach out. Here is all of our information. So there's 4 of us that look after all of Victoria. So please reach out. You can reach out to any of us if you're not sure who's who, and we can get you in touch with the right person. And we would love to, meet with you and answer any further questions we can.
I might just respond to Jacinta's comment that process of coming up with a tradie science unit. That sounds like a great idea for your school. I think it's very important for students to get that full understanding of science no matter what they do. I would definitely develop it, but might be worth being aware that I have a little birdie told me that there's going to be a vocational major version of science coming up. I've heard that it's in development, so keep an eye out for that space as well. Is there any other questions?
Doesn't look like it, but like I said, please make sure you reach out to any of us and we're able to get you those answers, and hopefully we've been able to answer some of your questions that you maybe already had today as well.
All right, I think if there are no more questions, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll be in touch with a copy of the recording and the slides.
Thank you everyone. Bye.